You know, we have a lot of different names for God. Father, Lord, Creator. But what if there was one name? One that's meant specifically for those moments of total, absolute impossibility.
Yeah, that's really the heart of what we're going to dig into today. What if there's a name for God that's meant for your life? You know, for those times when your cup feels bone dry and you're looking at a situation thinking, there is just no humanly possible way forward. Okay, so our journey here begins by unpacking this really powerful name for God. And look, you've probably heard it before, but I'm willing to bet its usual translation, well, it only scratches the surface.
So the name is El Shaddai. It's Hebrew, and you'll almost always see it translated as God Almighty. And its very first appearance, it's in Genesis, when God shows up to Abraham, who, by the way, is 99 years old at the time.
Okay, but wait a second. That brings up a really interesting question, right? We already have a name for an all-powerful God, Elohim, the God of creation. So why would we need another name that means Almighty? What's really going on here? What's the difference? And this is where it gets really fascinating. You can think of these two names as, well, as two totally different faces of what almighty power actually means. Just look at this comparison. On one hand, you've got Elohim, the cosmic creator, this immense raw power, kind of like a father's might. But then you have El Shaddai, and it points to something else entirely. It's about abundant provision, this nurturing fullness, almost like a mother's care. See the shift? It's not just about raw power, it's about supplying a very specific personal need. There's a simple but honestly brilliant analogy that makes this super clear. Picture a crying baby, okay? So a father might come in and try to use his strength to fix the problem, right? He's rocking it hard, trying to kind of overpower the crying, but the baby just keeps on wailing. But the mother, she often gets the deeper need. It's not a problem of power, it's a problem of provision. She provides milk, and boom, the crying stops. That is the heart of El Shaddai. Not just a God who can do anything, but a God who provides exactly what you need right when you need it, filling that very specific emptiness. So to really get this, we've got to go back to where this name first shows up. And it's right in the middle of a totally impossible promise God made to Abraham after a long 24-year wait. Let's just walk through this timeline, because the length of this wait is everything. At 75 years old, Abraham gets this incredible promise. You're going to be the father of a great nation. And then, crickets, nothing, for 24 years. Now he's 99, his wife Sarah is way past childbearing age, there is no heir. And it is at that exact moment of total human impossibility that God shows up and says, I am El Shaddai. And what happens? A year later, Isaac is born. And I mean, you literally cannot get more impossible than this. The Bible puts it bluntly, describing his own body as good as dead. This was the definition of an empty cup. There was zero human potential left, none. So it makes you wonder, right? What was even happening during those 24 years of silence? It reminds me of the story of the Chinese bamboo tree. You plant the seed, you water it, and for 5 straight years, you see absolutely nothing. It looks like a complete and total failure. But what you can't see is that underground, this massive, complex root system is growing. And then, after 5 years of nothing, it just explodes. It can shoot up 30 meters. That's almost 100 feet in just 6 weeks. You see, the waiting wasn't abandonment. It was essential preparation. And for Abraham, those 24 silent years, they were building a root system of faith, one strong enough to handle the incredible miracle that was on its way. But look, this isn't just some ancient story that's hard to relate to. Let's jump forward in time to a much more modern example from the 1800s to see this same exact principle in action. So let me tell you about a guy named George Mueller. He ran an orphanage for over 2,000 kids, and he funded the whole thing entirely through prayer. No fundraising, nothing. So one morning, they wake up and the kitchen is totally bare.
No food, no milk, nothing. The tables are all set, but every single plate is empty. Now, instead of freaking out, Mueller does something incredible. He gathers all the children to sit down at the empty table to pray.
And you have to hear his prayer. He doesn't beg God for food. He thanks El Shaddai God for the food he was sure was already on its way. Think about that. He's thanking the God who fills empty cups while staring at hundreds of them. And then it happened. A knock at the door. It's a local baker. He says he woke up in the middle of the night and just felt this overwhelming urge to bake bread for the orphanage. Amazing, right? But wait. Moments later, another knock. This time, it's a milkman. His cart has broken down right in front of the orphanage, and he needs to give away all the milk for free before it spoils. Just like that, the empty cups were filled. Not just filled, but filled specifically and abundantly. Okay, so what is the big idea here? What are we supposed to take away from all this? Well, it turns out there's this really surprising deep connection between our moments of greatest hardship and this very specific name for God. Get ready for this, because this is a stunning fact. The name El Shaddai shows up 48 times in the Old Testament, okay? Now, of those 48 times, 31 of them, that's over 60%, are in one single book, the book of Job. You know, the book that is literally all about suffering and loss. That is no coincidence. This name for this specific kind of God shows up most often when things are at their absolute worst. And that leads us to the real heart of it all. El Shaddai isn't a God who stops you from having an empty cup. He's the God who fills the empty cup. The emptiness itself, it actually becomes the necessary space for the miracle to happen. I mean, that just flips the whole thing on its head, doesn't it? Maybe the problem isn't our empty situation. Maybe the real problem, the real challenge, is our own failure to believe. Our failure to look at that empty space and actually trust that it can be filled in ways we could never cook up on our own. So I want to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. When you face your own moments of impossibility, when your energy, your resources, your hope, when it all feels completely drained, what if you're not at an end? What if you're actually, finally, making the perfect amount of space for something brand new to begin?